Hello and welcome to the second part of our conversation with Rajesh Ivaturi. I'm your host Santosh Kumar, and we are continuing to talk about storytelling and its impact in our lives.
Look for the silver lining whenever a cloud appears in the blue.
Okay, you spoke about the phase where you had the opportunity to travel, devour YouTube videos, which we all do. By the way, do you have a favorite with your YouTube channels?
I whatever topic fancies me, I have now cracked the way to skim through YouTube to find the good quality content. There are lots of crap in YouTube, so if you need to skim through it to get the right content. Whatever topic fancies me, I can
Okay,
go
folks,
deep into it.
one more thing. When he says crap, he just means things which doesn't interest him. So just give-
But things don't interest me. Also, on a particular topic, if you pick up any topic, there are lots of kinds of points of views out there. So for you to get to a well-researched point of view is also the hard work that you need to do in terms of your own research. Otherwise, on every topic you pick up, there are tens and thousands of videos out there. It's up to you to be patient to get to the content and good quality research. Because to me, I go with an open mind. I want good quality, well-researched documentaries rather than strong opinion-based documentaries. So yeah, I'm a big fan of YouTube. If I had to carry only one app with me to a deserted island, I think YouTube would be it.
I just wanted to bring this to your notice, Rajesh, that there goes by a podcast by the name Between Us, and we are coming up with a channel, and we look forward to
Yes.
your continued patronage.
Yes.
You spoke about traveling, and I'm sure you continue to travel now. Were you not traveling enough when you were married? Was travel limited, or it changed after you probably took on more traveling assignments? Was that or it just came your way?
No, I would say travel has been a part of my life right through. Right through. I mean, as early as the age of 17, when I left my home to pursue my graduation and then masters, etc., I've been traveling right through. So to me, that's been a constant, and I love traveling. And I strongly believe in that cliched saying which says, "The farther you go from home, the closer you get to yourself." So I've been fortunate that way. And it's not about father is not the point, to be honest. It doesn't matter whether you're traveling hundreds of kilometers or or thousands of kilometers. It's more about taking a step back and looking at the larger picture. And traveling helps me do that, rather than just being otherwise in a day-to-day thing. I'm just stuck to one particular routine. So once you step back and look at things differently, it opens my mind. So it has definitely worked for me, and I've been fortunate that it's been a part of my life.
Are you spiritual?
Yes.
Are you religious?
No.
Do you visit temples?
Not much.
Do you have a temple at home?
I do have a small temple at home, but I rarely. I'm not at all religious that way. No.
I want to go back to something where you spoke about when you finally made that decision to move on, and the fact that you traveled a lot and that gave you a different perspective. You made new friends who are best friends for life. Just wanting to go back to that phase, was there a process of letting go of what happened? Because one thing is you moved on, but there is still a certain amount of residue of emotions which probably stayed back. By that I don't mean your daughter is still a part of your life, right? But the art of letting go, now that you are where you are, looking back, is there something you want to share? Allowing life to flow the way it is, perfect. I understand all of that. But there's always that little residue. I think it hits you the hardest when I had this huge crush in high school. And I don't know, it has a lot to do with my zodiac sign, being a Virgo, or being a number 4, or whatever. I would always see my mom saying, you're a Virgo, you're a number 4. They have this habit of, keeping things to yourself. It's a high school crush. You'll move to your undergrad. You'll meet more people. Life will change for you. But I think I realized that the letting go part was the hardest when I was a teenager. Some people say that it's easier to let go when you are young, and probably when you reach a certain age, that's when you, especially if it involves marriage or long-term relationship, it's hard to let go. So it's a debate which probably will go on for the longest time. But that process of letting go, from letting go to it's gone and I'm now where you are. I think now I can ask you this question because you are where you are, and you look and feel contented. And of course, there would be other challenges aside, but that aspect of it, when and how did that happen? Was it a continuous process, or is it still happening? Or do you sometimes ask yourself, I wish things were different?
No.
Okay.
That fortunately doesn't happen. But I guess to answer your question, a couple of pointers are coming to my mind. One is I'm not sure if it's a function of age. If anything, with age, I think it became easier. I don't know if it's a sinusoidal curve wherein it'll start becoming more difficult going forward. I don't know that. But maybe if I look at my initial crushes the way you're talking versus later on, I think maybe with age it got easier. But I think that I'm digressing. But I guess the important point is to practice detachment, which really helped me. And
How?
so I think there's a difference between the so-called attachment. Okay, possessiveness versus love. Okay, possessiveness is about ourselves. If I'm possessive about someone, it's about me, not the other person. I'll give an example. Let's say a mother is very possessive about the child. Okay? The child gets an amazing career opportunity to move to the US or wherever, some other part of the world. A possessive mother might say, don't leave me and go. I want you to be close to me. That is not love, because that is about the mother, not the well-being of the child. Okay. Love, on the other hand, is about the other person, where the focus is on what's best for the other person. Okay. A loving mother would say, you fly, you go where life takes you. Okay. Similarly, attachment versus detachment. Detachment doesn't mean lack of love. Okay. My toughest part of the separation was actually separation from my daughter. Okay. Because
did you never feel even once that I can understand that things didn't work out with your then partner, but did you also not feel in the sense that why it didn't?
I think I don't know if it's very logical. I'm extremely fond of my daughter, like most dads are, I guess. And we had, she was just 5.5 when I had to separate. And we had an amazing bond. So the fondest memory of my marriage, of course, there were a lot of beautiful things with my wife then. But my daughter was a very important part. We had our daughter within the first year of our marriage. So she was the anniversary gift for us. So to me, my marriage was largely, I think, I cannot think of my first marriage without my daughter. It's a very important part of that phase of my life. And to me, that was the most difficult separation in a way. And that's where I had to very actively, because that was causing me the biggest pain. Somehow, I think I sort of got off the attachment with my ex then, because maybe I told myself that, okay, she's an adult, she can deal. I don't know what I told myself, to be honest. But somehow I felt that she will find her path. Not that I didn't feel that. Maybe it's partly because my daughter was quite young then. She was only 5.5. Maybe I wanted her to. I had a lot of dreams for her that I will do this for her. We will grow up like this and that. So suddenly, not living with her at all, I think that was the biggest pain. Whereas with my ex, I don't think I had that. I felt that she's big enough and she'll figure out her way. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm articulating well. But the important point is that detachment, practicing detachment. And the way I had to do that was to say, let me just keep focusing on what's best for my daughter. And let me just try to do that part. And not be consumed by my pain of not being with her, because that's my greed of trying to be with her as much as I can, right? But from a love perspective, so we used to speak regularly, and even back then video calls through FaceTime and all we used to have 13 14 years back, and our conversations would go on for a few hours. In some cases it'll be like 5-10 minutes. Okay. So to keep her engaged, I had to keep coming up with something new. That was also the reason why I started looking at such stars, sun, moon, evolution. I thought I had to tell her some new story this time to keep her hooked. Otherwise, if the interest level dropped, she would say, okay, daddy, let's speak later. But if I'm telling her some story, okay, how the birth of stars happen, how life happens, this is the way stars come to being, and this is how the star bursts, and gold and all these heavy metals are formed, and it's all found on the earth. So I used to find some interesting topic to keep her hooked, so that she keeps talking to me. So those 2-3 hours, especially on Sundays when we used to speak, they were undistracted, high quality time. And actually now I'm realizing that many parents who actually are, of course, living with their kids don't spend such quality time with their kids. I'm not saying I was better or worse. All I'm saying is that because I could get over my pain and grief, I focused on the quality of the time that I had, because quantity I couldn't get.
Okay. Is the art of letting go also an art of love?
Art of letting go is your self-growth. Okay? My self-growth.
Let me rephrase this question. So, is the art of letting go an act of love?
Detached love is the best form of love. Okay? When I say detached love, as I was explaining.
So letting go is also a form of detachment?
100%. So you see, to keep someone with you, as I said, it's your challenge, right? I want to be with this person. So there was this nice joke, not a joke. I mean, I was listening to this audio podcast somewhere. They said, if you're holding the leash on your dog, who's controlling whom? Are you owning the dog, or is the dog is owning you?
True.
If you let go of the leash, who's happier? If the dog is happier with you letting go of the leash, then you're the one who's in bondage. Okay. So, and love doesn't need bondage, right? So, to me, I think this attachment, and I'm so attached to someone, I'm so this, I think it's all wrong language, and unfortunately confuses a lot of people, because people very conveniently say, I'm so attached to that person, whereas that's not what it is supposed to be.
What kind of a role has spirituality played in the art of letting go in your life?
The practice of spirituality was extremely important for my overall growth, including the art of letting go.
Talk us through the process of your spirituality practice. I mean, is there a routine you follow? Is it something which you do throughout the day?
So, no, there's no routine as such, but I don't know if you've heard about this. This might take a little longer to talk through, but let me just attempt it. So this, in that phase of my life where I was devouring content on YouTube, my hunger for spirituality took me to all corners, all ideas. But finally, I related best with the concept of Advaita. So what I liked more, it's more of a philosophy. It's not a practice as such. It's more of a mindset,
Yes.
wherein the key tenet there is to say that you're neither the body, you're not the mind, you're not the emotion.
Correct.
You're just the witness consciousness.
Right.
So that idea gave me a lot of peace. And in the toughest of situations, it helps me detach from the drama all around. Okay. So if I'm just a witness of life happening, then I'm just one of the cogs in the overall process of life expressing itself. Okay. If I'm actually truly in that witness consciousness mode, then I should be able to witness entire life in all its beauty, not just confine my experience with my life alone. I know it sounds very esoteric, etc., and I'm not claiming that I'm following it in toto, but this concept really helped me practice detachment, and it helped me in many other ways as well.
Such as?
Like looking at things from a bigger picture perspective, because we are all too closely attached to our stories, right? I mean,
True.
and naturally so,
Yeah.
my promotion, my job, my kid, my wife, my relationship, my health, my looks. So these are all, and all these are such that there's never a time where you are in charge of all of these. It's just not practically possible, So I say that there are 4 things in life which hit every human being at some stage or the other. At least one of these 4 will hit. One is your health, or your financial status, your relationships, or your social status. Okay, at least one of these would hit adversely, of course, 99% of the people at some stage in their life.
Sure.
Okay, so the only way for you to be happy in spite of these, and none of us can control all of these. You might feel that I'm in control, but many of these things just happen when they have to happen. So the only way for you to, the only guarantee or an insurance for continued happiness or peace is to practice that detachment, and whatever definition of spirituality helps you take you away from the day-to-day drama of life is good, I guess, kosher, I guess. I related to Advaita. People could relate to whatever they want, but I feel spirituality should help us A, be detached, and B, look at the larger picture rather than getting into this lot of pettiness that again consumes many of us on a day-to-day basis.
An important aspect of your life, because I know you've brought this, you've shared this during the course of this conversation. As a parent, and I believe you have 2 daughters now.
Yep.
Talk me through how has it changed for the second child with all the experiences from the first? How has it changed? And how, the entire parenting process, and does the art of detachment, spirituality, letting go, vulnerability, all the emotions which you've experienced, I'm sure in some form or the other, just like an artist, when an artist or an actor goes on stage, there is a piece of the person which goes out there. I'm sure there are pieces of all of these emotions which you've gone through that is poured into every relationship, including your current one, but your children. So talk me through some of that.
Initially when I was separated, I used to meet my daughter every alternate weekend. They were in Hyderabad, I was in Bombay.
You would fly down.
I would fly down, take a train, take a bus, whatever. I would make it a point to meet her every alternate weekend. Okay. And I did that for a good 4 years before my ex got remarried. And even then, I tried to, without disturbing their way of life, I tried to be as consistent as possible in terms of meeting her and staying in touch with her. But if you hear what I've been saying, it was all about me.
Yes.
My whole purpose.
I was about to ask you that.
My whole idea in that phase was, I'm doing this, I'm not leaving you behind, I'm consistently seeing you. What I missed, which I discovered much later, that I'm not consciously asking myself what is right for my daughter. Not just in terms of me meeting, not meeting. That's not the point. I mean, is my focus on trying to tell myself that, Dekho, I'm being a good dad, or is my focus on her well being? Okay. So, not that I was so consumed by ticking the boxes that I was not conscious of what her needs were. But somehow, this need of mine to tell myself that I'm a good dad, I guess somewhere was making me a little blindsided. Okay. So I think it hit me maybe a good 4 or 5 years after my separation that, oh shit, this is what I've been doing. Okay. So the entire focus should have been on what she wants rather than, because see, this drama of she's not with her dad is my dialogue. She's just growing up as a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, developing into a teenager and living life as a teenager, right? So in her world, it could well be, oh my God, I'm a teenager. Am I looking good? Am I making friends? Are boys interested in me? Whatever. So she may have her own conversation in her own mind.
True.
Whereas my conversation is, oh my God, she's not with her dad.
Yes.
Okay. So that change in my own perception was an important switch, which happened maybe when she was in class 7th or 8th, and I got separated from my daughter when she was in class 1, I guess. Okay, so it took me that long for me to figure out where I was going wrong. Okay, that I was focusing on, and not, as I said, not that I was blind to her needs, but the predominant voice in my head was, oh, I mean, she's away from her dad. She should not be away from her dad. Oh, she's disadvantaged. So I was looking at her life through this lens.
And thank you for answering now, finally, the question which I asked you at the very beginning, where you mentioned about the I. This was what I was trying to get at, when we start talking about the eyes. Anyways, coming back, how would you rate the way your daughter, when you were in this whole idea of how I am doing, how was she in the whole process?
I think there were stages where I felt that because I was so consumed by this, trying to be a father, rather than trying to understand what she needs. Okay, and I think this is a mistake which most parents make. We try to be parents,
Right.
first, okay, rather than trying to understand what the child needs.
Right.
Okay. So fortunately for me, I consciously made that switch to say, okay, I've been making a mistake. I need to now start seeing what are the needs of my child. Okay. So so that switch really helped from a parenting perspective to see. I guess in that phase where I was all about parenting and trying to tell myself that I'm not a bad dad, I guess on a few occasions I didn't validate her emotions. Okay.
Okay.
So, like for example, if you would say, "This is how I'm feeling," I'm feeling this, I'm feeling this pain, I'm feeling this confusion. I would say, "Oh, but it's okay. This is very natural." I mean, what I felt was I should have first tried to understand where she's coming from, rather than trying to put on the parent hat saying, "Oh, it's okay. So there were those kind of examples wherein, for example, she had a bit of a tough time adjusting to the new family. Okay. So I would try to be this good guy to say, "Oh, but it's okay, but this is fine. It happens. You'll adjust," rather than trying to actually understand what she was feeling and, letting her know that I understand her emotion. I validate that emotion. Maybe that's where, this kind of a self-talk could have overpowered. But yeah, I think so. The second time over with the younger kid, the challenge is a little different one. Okay? It's not just about being wiser, having seen the first one. she's also not my biological daughter, right? The younger one is not my biological daughter. She's so in fact my wife now, she lost her husband when she was 5 months pregnant. Okay, so the younger one has never seen her dad. So I'm the only dad she knows of, and she met me when she was almost 7, and now she's 14. The challenge with the younger one is somewhere I'm conscious about her needs, very, very conscious. So I try to put myself in her shoes to see what she needs. Okay. But maybe because my wife is a very active parent. Okay. So how much, so somewhere I feel, okay, she has a particular, she wants to do a few things to her daughter. This is the way she looks at it. I don't want to, how should I put it? I don't want to influence my views too much. I will suggest, I will present all of this, but I will not push it too hard because she has a plan for the younger one. But somewhere, the conversation I'm starting to have now is that I'm the father. So if I say I should not just take a approach wherein I say, okay, not that I'm detached or something, I'm very involved parent, but most of the big decisions, it's more like I'm in the suggestion mode and my wife is in the decision making mode.
Do you
Though
switch modes?
if I really feel that something is very, very important, I switch in. But on the day-to-day calls, I let her take all the some of the day-to-day calls about the regular stuff. But big decisions, I come in with a view. But I think there again, there's still a journey left for me to become become the more active dad, wherein I say, okay, no, I put my foot down, this is what I want, and go against the views of my wife. I do take that stance. I'm not saying that. In many situations wherein I'm able to see what the kid is going through, and I'm able to very clearly see that this is what she needs. If my wife is having a different view, I put my foot down. But maybe it's a bit of a journey there. How much to push in, how much to step back. I'm still trying to fine tune that because unlike, say, in the case of a typical adoption where the kid would have come into my life when the kid would have been much younger, maybe under a year, then I'm fully taking charge. Here, the kid came into my life when she was almost 8. She met me first when she was 7, and we actually got married when the kid was already 8, almost 8. So that fine balance of am I in the suggesting role or the active decision-making role, it keeps it keeps wavering sometimes. But I guess I'm yet to fine-tune and get to that point where, yes, it's decisively I have moved one way or the other.
I'm not a parent, I aspire to be one. Do any parent, I'm sure you interact with friends who are parents, is there a parenting 101 at all? Or has anyone got it right?
I don't know. I mean, I can just talk about my credos. My credo is, again, this is not that I was like this on day one. This has come after a lot of thing actually my kids have taught me.
Yeah.
My kids have taught me, and I've learned from them.
Which
this
is
how I
always the
should
case
be,
because I think
right?
we learn all the
So
time.
So I now learned that the most important trait a parent has to build, I guess, is to not say what I want my kids to be. Okay, focus on. So the biggest role I think a parent has is to help a kid understand themselves and understand their strengths. Okay, so like for example, you can't say, oh, how can you get bad marks in maths? That's your conditioning, right? It's not maybe the kid will get all zeros for all you care, but maybe the kid is amazing in something else. So I know these things sound very cliched, but somewhere we associate our own pride with our kids' performance. For example, when I'm talking to my friends, I want to say, oh, my kid is so smart, my kid is this, my kid is going to some country for a program of MUN, a model UN or whatever. I think most parents want to brag about their kids and use them as a self aggrandizement instrument, if I'm using the words correctly. But I guess the important skill is to first understand what your kids needs are and help them figure out what their strengths are. To my mind, that is an extremely important skill which every parent needs to get to. If you could do nothing as a parent, just love them. If you could do a little more, provide for them. In fact, if you could do a little more, teach them the things you didn't learn as a kid. And if you could do a little more, then give them a comfortable life. Okay, and not the other way around. I think parents who are well-to-do, I think, should not make the mistake of starting with making the kid comfortable and giving them luxuries, then looking at teaching them, then loving them. I mean, I don't know if that's the particular order, but to my mind, I think if you can do nothing, just love them. If you can do a little more, teach them the skills that you couldn't learn as a kid. If you could do a little more, then provide for them and give them all the comforts that you could afford.
Okay, guys, these are the parenting 101 tips coming from
Rajesh
Rajesh.
Ivaturi.
So, how many years apart are your two daughters?
4 years apart.
4 years apart. So, she's your older one is now in
18. The
and
young one
she's-
is 14.
So, the older one is now in
She's
undergrad.
finished her schooling and she's now going to college. Yes.
Okay, I think we've been talking a whole host of interesting and exciting things. Mostly, I would say, life experiences. If it's all right to talk about your current relationship in terms of your partner, and how has all of the other experiences in life, and what did you get? If I would use the word, I mean, I'm sure it's not the correct term, but what did you get right this time?
Honestly, I guess most of it was my wife getting it right.
Uh-huh.
She taught me the importance of communication. I didn't. So my style is just to go. If I don't like something, I just go quiet, which is the worst thing I guess one could do in a relationship.
Yes.
That might work in many other situations, but not in a relationship. Like just give them the silent treatment, right? So my wife forces me to have a conversation in the on the most uncomfortable of topics. Okay, she would force. No, we have to talk. So that no matter how uncomfortable it is, she kind of prizes it out of me, which I guess is really amazing in this relationship, and it works. The other thing she has taught me, I'm yet to learn it fully, but she's not teaching me as a teacher student and through classrooms, but by being who she is. I can confidently say I now know through her what unconditional love looks like. Okay. So the one consistent thing I see in her eyes is love for me, which, as I said, I'm blessed. It's not something that I'm getting it right. I'm just being this non-controversial sweet guy. I guess the rest of it she's doing. I mean, but that she's really, really taught me. And the third thing, especially in our slightly complicated relationship as a parent with a stepdaughter, she trusts me. She doesn't get involved. So even if me and my younger one are having any argument, fight, disagreement, like all the typical things that happen in a house, she just lets me be, which gives me so much confidence to be myself without having to constantly second guess if like parents can be irrational sometimes, right? How many times have our parents been irrational? Parents can be irrational. So I think she helps me with this in my own parenting style. If I'm sometimes being irrational, she just lets me be. If I'm, and of course she knows the chemistry, she knows we trust each other. Even if we have a bit of a shouting spree, she comes and hugs me, I go and hug her, I say sorry, she says sorry, the kid. So in the entire parenting thing, the worst thing she could have done was to constantly put me on the alert because I'm the stepdad, but she doesn't do that. She just lets me be. Okay, and she just lets our relationship between me and my daughter evolved naturally, which is really amazing, because it's not easy for any biological parent to let another parent come in and and just be a parent, because as parents we love our kids, we fight with our kids, we shout at our kids, we I don't know how many parents say sorry, but we say sorry, so that's the usual natural course. But the moment I put a filter of a stepdad, the slightest of quote unquote misdemeanor can look very bad. So I think the way she trusts me gives me a lot of confidence to just to be myself.
Can you safely say that you are on your way to becoming your younger daughter's closest confidant? Are you in that process where she absolutely walks up to you? Where, I've always believed in this. I want to just take, while you were sharing this story, I'm reminded of my dad, who is no longer with us. I grew up in Calcutta with my parents, and I would say this because I have a sibling, a brother. My parents would always address in a public gathering, in a family gathering, as our children. Would never say boy or boys. They were both parents to us. They would switch roles effortlessly. And really want to bring this conversation. In fact, the fact that I'm podcasting today is because of my dad's dream, who has been a huge Larry King fan. He was in one of his tapings and he shared that with me. And he said, someday when you become a broadcaster, he didn't imagine it'll be a podcaster. I would follow his footsteps or try to emulate or be like him. There was one incident which I really want to bring up. So growing up, when we were growing up, there was a time when there were few days of the month, 4 or 5 days of the month, when my mom would never enter the kitchen. And I think I was 11 and a half or 12 when this happened. She would just not go to the kitchen. She would be to herself. And I would see some markings on a calendar or something like that would happen. And I would just, one day I just walked up to my dad and asked, what is happening here? And my dad sat me down and explained me what is what, and why there are a few days when you go through that period for women, and this is what happens. So I asked my dad, why? Are you not allowed to cook, or are you not allowed to do this? And my dad said, no, it's a choice she's made. And he just said, and those are the days when you get to taste how your dad cooks, his culinary skills. And I would just say, can that happen a lot more? Because you cook much better than mom. Mom had a very healthy cooking style. And the reason why I bring up this is, as you were talking through your own parenting process, when I look back today, because when you're growing up, you're a little rebellious, and you would always feel that your friends' parents are way better than your parents sometimes. I look back at my parents and I thought they were extraordinarily progressive about everything in life and how they brought us up. When I look back at debates which are happening today about gender, about the fact which are very important conversations which we have, and we bring that up in this podcast, I see the importance of addressing children as children and not just by their genders. I'm not saying you should not, and how it was very essential, because my father would always be 5 days a week. He was at the shipping, because he was a part of the shipping division, and those couple of days when he would come back and the roles would switch and mom could do something else. And I'm just sharing this story because as you were sharing your experience as a parent, I went down my memory lane. But tell me something about how your life growing up. I know that it's an interesting story you have, where you love quantum physics, I believe, and you also love historical figures. Talk about your growing up and how your parents were and that experience vis-a-vis where you are today.
I guess my parents were my father was brought up in extreme poverty himself. So much so that I think he had my grandmother had some 13 kids. I think 6 didn't survive, 7 survived. My grandfather was a school teacher, and his retirement salary in 1963, this is a legend in our family, was 13 rupees. So, and my father, there was a lot of respect for teachers back in those villages. So there's this family which who sort of agreed to give milk free of cost to our father's family. My father, being the eldest, had to go and fetch that milk from their house. Now, my father would feel ashamed that somebody is giving us free milk, and he wouldn't knock on the door.
Okay.
He would just stand at the door.
Okay.
And sometimes he'll be waiting for half an hour or even an hour for them to see him, call him in, and give the milk to him. Okay. So, and his stories are legendary. I know many Indian kids back in the day would have heard similar stories from their parents. But, he says, I bought my first sandals in class 9. My first full pant was in class 10 when I had to not buy a new one for myself, but alter my uncle's trouser and use it. So, and my mother was brought up in a village, and my father couldn't continue his studies after class 11th. Matriculation was 11th back then, and he had to start working. My mother had similar tough upbringing. She was the second last kid, again, in a 10, 12 kid family. Yeah. And her 2 elder siblings were boys, and the last one was a girl. And in class 5, when my mother was in class 5, my grandmother had a heart condition, so she couldn't work at home. So my mother, who was 10 years, had to discontinue her school and help at house. So she used to cook at starting age 10. So, and because her 2 elder siblings were boys who had to study, and the one elder to them was already married off. So, and the youngest was too young to work at home. So it came on my mother to quit school at the age of 10 and start working at house. So both my parents had a very, very tough upbringing. So for them, the most important thing for their children, which is me and my elder brother, who's just 2 years older than me, was these kids should not have it as tough as we had it. They should have a secure life, a financially secure life. That was their number one, be all and all. Everything else from my father was like, if you're financially secure, nothing else matters. Because it's like, it's one thing to say whatever, but it's like, if you talk to a hungry man who's been hungry for 4 or 5 days, what's the thing you want? He will not say world peace. He will say, give me a bowl of food, right? So for my parents, the most number one important thing when it came to me and my brother was studies. And they didn't know any better. They didn't know anything else. The only way for us to have a good life was to do well at studies. So there was a lot of emphasis on studies. But the other thing which I now pick up is that they both, in spite of extreme poverty, were brought up in families which had extremely high value systems. Okay, in terms of honesty, hard work, not being corrupt, helping others. So till my class 7, and I'm the younger kid in my house, 50% of my father's salary used to go to his parents and his siblings to support them financially. And my mother didn't throw a fit. And in fact, she was very supportive of that, which also is a commendable quality, because someone who herself comes from not a well-off background and 2 kids to take care of, and the husband is sending 50% of the money back home to take care of his siblings. My mother never thought that was wrong. In fact, she used to actively support my father. So what was subconsciously given to me were a great set of values, along with a humongous emphasis on studies. Okay.
And those are something which you carry forward as a parent yourself.
Yeah, I mean, my parenting style is dramatically different from my father's.
But the core value system.
So a lot of who I am now, I can say, I've lived a very different life from them. Of course, I've lived a very different life from them. but many of the core values I picked from them. In fact, my mother, who discontinued at the age of 10, schooling at the age of 10, is way more curious and knowledgeable than many people, even half her age. She's now
Sure.
70. And I taught her how to use YouTube. And she now devours YouTube for a different kind of content. She's into her definition of spirituality, which is all this satsang kind of stuff. But she's always lived curious. She would read a lot of magazines. She would know stuff, she would learn different things. So I think a big part of my curiosity I got from my mother, and my father is very detached and very, small things don't affect him too much. I think he's maybe some of those things I picked up from him. My mother is way too emotional, but my father is way more sorted when it comes to this. Even today, they both wake up. My father is 75, mother is 71. They both wake up at 4 in the morning, and they have their own routines for the day, and they sort of knock off at 9 in the night. So
Yeah.
they have a very disciplined life even now.
The
Touch
Brahma
wood.
Muhurtam, as they say.
Yes.
So I would say, based on what you just said, the art of letting go and let life be as it is. It's a lot of things which probably picked up from your growing up years and
Yeah.
the values you got from your parents. I think we're at a stage where the conversations could probably go on. If I were to ask you this question, the life purpose itself, do you feel, and I'm not saying that you're done with what you're doing, you've started a new phase of your life, we're going to talk about that, but the core purpose of life, keeping in mind spirituality, keeping in mind all the life experiences, has it changed from what you thought was your life purpose, or whatever little definition you had about the purpose of your life?
So till recently, I used to believe that why should life have a purpose? You just take life as it comes. And there's this beautiful audio by Osho, a 14-minute audio. It's available on YouTube. I would encourage your listeners to also pay attention to that one. Very interesting one, where he says, life has no goals, no purpose. I recently learned that maybe my definition of the word purpose was wrong, because I guess what Osho was saying in that audio was more about desires, I guess. Because if you look at desires, they're infinite. I mean, you get one, you want one more, you get that one more, you want one more, and so on and so forth. So the way he explains in that audio is that he says it's like, if you have a purpose, you will get there, and then you get one more. Then life says, okay, I want something else. So it becomes an infinite loop. But I guess that's more of a desired cycle. But purpose, the way I recently understood, I'm not sure if this definition is a correct definition or not. But if I look back at my what drives me, if I look at my own journey, and now that I'm 46, I have a good set of data points of all the things I have been, all the things that sort of inspired me, drove me to be who I am, and to do all the things that I've done. I guess I start seeing a pattern. So now my definition of purpose is, where are all these dots leading me to? What are all these where are all these dots kind of taking me to? So there, I think now, especially with this new venture, I think things are lining up in a particular way, because I've always been curious about why people do what they do. And it's been a question I've been asking myself as young age as 15. And one thing led to the other, all this interest in evolution, spirituality, cosmology, quantum physics, classical physics. All of this, I think, is coming from that quest to understand the human nature, the human mind, why we are, what is life. So I've always been extremely curious, but I'm especially curious about life itself and the way we think, behave, act. Why do we do what we do? So to my mind, if I do say what is my purpose, maybe solving maybe a too big a task for me to take up for myself, but extending the understanding of the human nature to my mind is seeming like something I want to do as I move forward in my life, adding to what people have put together already, not from a spirituality perspective, but more uh, a scientific way to look at, okay, what is it? Why are people what they are? And even if I don't get to an answer, the quest itself is super exciting to me. Talking to people, understanding their stories, understanding why they do what they do is super interesting to me. So maybe the journey itself is my quest, probably. I don't know. But that's the direction I'm taking right now.
I think you've said it so beautifully, Rajesh, because in many ways I can connect to it, and that is why my journey in podcasting is what it is to meet people, evolve, share experiences, gain valuable lessons, and I know we're going to talk about something which you are about to. You have already embarked upon, but I definitely want to go back to the one point which you spoke about, evolution. So you believe in evolution?
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's all around us. It's so evident. I mean, there's no question of even questioning evolution.
You know, there are people who still debate it.
It's unfortunate. I wish they could see the evidence. Yeah.
We started off with talking. We started off with conversations. We spoke about opinions. We spoke about perspective, judgment. We spoke about life in general. We spoke about meeting people, conversations, travel. And I believe all of this has finally culminated into what you are about to embark on, which is your new initiative. And it's called Y Lanes. And at the heart of it, it's about conversations. Conversations on different topics. And guys, you can visit the site ylanes.com. Talk me through, how did this, when, where, how, and why?
Let me start with the why, which is the easiest part of it. So I love conversations. I love conversations on diverse topics. As I said, could be travel, history, evolution, spirituality, life, purpose, any of these, the new inventions, ideas, AI, quantum physics. I love conversations. I love meeting new people and talking to them and understanding their stories. And to me, it doesn't matter whether they lived a seemingly quote unquote interesting life or quote unquote not so interesting life. To me, each journey is interesting. In each journey, the way you are asking me, what was the conversation I had with myself at various stages of my life, something like that is extremely interesting to me. Why people do what they do, what made them make those choices, and in a very objective manner, in a non-judgmental manner. Because to me, as I said, I can actually sit with a serial killer and try to understand where they come from, not to justify their actions, but to understand the journey. What is this journey like? Why is this journey like the way it is? So to me, the human life itself is super curious and super exciting. That's the why for me. The other thing is that I actually realize that unfortunately the world today there's a lot of shallow conversations. I think we've been in the pandemic of shallow conversations for way too long than the other pandemic, which sort of is more talked about. When I say shallow conversations, we are very comfortable talking about external topics like politics, sports, entertainment, celebrities, and so on. But we're not very comfortable talking about ourselves. So, and it need not be that you're talking about your tough phases or whatever. It just talk about our life. I think that's where the deepest connections happen, when we share our life stories. Okay, so what? And we as human beings or as life itself are hardwired for connection.
Sure.
We seek connection.
True.
And I believe that the deepest connections happen when we share and exchange our life stories. Okay. So Y Lanes is an attempt to create that atmosphere where people can freely come together, exchange life stories, give what they want to give, take what they want to take. It's as simple as that. There's no, this is not a therapy, counseling. This is not about politics or, religion. This is not a debating platform. You come, share your stories, listen to other stories. Be vulnerable when you're sharing your story so that you're able to share your story in totality. be curious when you're listening to other stories, because everyone has lived an interesting life. So see what you can take from them. So that's the whole principle and ethos of violence. Give what you want to give, take what you want to take, exchange life stories.
Exchange life stories. That's the most interesting part.
Yeah.
And I think today, while during this conversation, we could get a little bit of your life story.
Absolutely.
A very, very interesting one at that. So, from this, as you said, this very interesting kid who grew up, who was always the ideal kid, who went to IIMs to pursue his MBA, and then started working with big league consulting firms. Tell me your experiences, your work experiences, and how it shaped your life trajectory apart from the life experiences. Is there other lines blurred? Is Rajesh Ivaturi the person and Rajesh Ivaturi the professional? Have the lines blurred? Are they two different people? Have one helped the other to where you are today?
Like the way you put it earlier, an actor brings a part of themselves to the stage. Similarly, I guess no matter how hard one tries, one does get impacted by the other, the personal and the professional life. I guess in most cases, in a good way, because you are at the core who you are. Like for example, I was always involved in people activities apart from my other commitments as a professional, like training, recruitment, L&D. So I was all mentoring. I was always actively involved in these areas. So maybe somewhere my natural affinity towards people would show one way or the other, whether I'm in one role or the other. So apart from my professional obligations, this was always there. And I think the corporate life and all these great companies I work with, I'm very, very thankful to them, because there's tremendous learning. I guess I can say that with most corporate, I mean, it's all up to us what we want to pick, to be honest. One can keep looking at negatives and say, okay, this is not good, that is not good. But if I look back, there's so much I've learned in terms of what does leadership mean? What does problem solving mean? Even there, why do people do what they do? I mean, if I look at clients, if I look at my colleagues, if I look at my people who work with me, etc. So a lot of these things I could pick up from there. And the biggest skill I learned as a consultant was structuring my thoughts and collaborating and working with people who are completely, like for example, not only within the company, but external ecosystem, partnering, problem solving. All these were amazing learnings, which I happily leveraged while creating this startup. Because there's a lot that goes into creating a startup. I'm sure you've been through a few journeys yourself. So a lot of that corporate world life helped me. Having said that, if someone just looks at my LinkedIn profile, they may feel a little surprised to see this avatar of mine, because LinkedIn maybe lacks tonality. It's more of a data set. Okay, this is where you studied and this is where you went for your first job, second job, and so on and so forth. It doesn't have tonality or personality apart from whatever a few images or text you're putting it out there. So maybe there, if you just compare my CV then and CV now, it might look quite dramatically different. But people who've known me, when I was talking about this initiative with a friend of mine who knew me as a school buddy, he said, what is this startup about? I said, this startup is about meaningful conversations and sharing life stories. He said, of all the people I know of, if I could think of one person who would ever create a startup like this, it could only be you. Okay, so I think so that was like, okay, so which means that I have been the same guy who I am. It's just that people have seen me in different avatars.
Absolutely, Rajesh, because as I said, I think I shared this with you. I had a guest who was a doctor and she became a fashion designer. And while during the course of the conversation, she realized, I realized, all of us realized here, that she always wanted to be that. I think that holds true for many of us who are fortunate enough to find their calling. I think some of them do find their calling, and some of them probably believe that this is what they have been. And I think that comes a lot with curiosity. It comes, as you mentioned, with parents and how you grew up. Rajesh, it has been wonderful talking to you, talking with you, conversing with you, just trying to put it out there. Is there something you would like to share, which probably not from a perspective of your venture, or not from a perspective of your academic and work background, but in general because I find your life to be very, very interesting, and so are everyone's life. But whether it is relationship, whether it is parenting, evolving yourself as a person, what would be that one message you would like to share with people?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm in a position to give any message. But one thing which fascinates me is ideas, and I thoroughly, selfishly, non-guiltily, without guilt,
Yeah.
I pursue these ideas.
Yeah. And let's not get into that Oxford Dictionary definitions. We just
without guilt, without any shame, without any obligation of running at a particular pace, I pursue my ideas zealously. I want to go after those ideas, and it's not about do those ideas mean something? Will they get you somewhere? Will that get you your next job, your next gig? Not from that perspective. I could well have been in my corporate life doing all that I'm doing, but taking the same ideas forward in my own way. So I'm not saying that quitting everything and creating a startup along the ideas I believed in was the only way to do it. But I feel that pursuing ideas is something that really fascinates me, and I would only encourage anyone who's out there who has ideas, thoughts, want to explore something, go deeper. There's so much available out there, and the world is full of answers these days. The only thing it needs is someone who can ask all the right questions.
Okay, so someone who asks the right questions. Thank you, Rajesh, for your time. It was truly a beautiful experience for me, and I'm sure for our viewers as well. So that is another episode of Between Us. As we say, make every conversation count. And as Rajesh said, and we believe that we all tell stories which we share with people around us, stories which is a part of our life experiences. But I have always believed that the most powerful story is the story we tell ourselves. So I'm going to leave this episode with a question for all of you. When was the last time you told your true story to yourself? Thank you. Until next time.
Lovely.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Between Us podcast. This podcast was recorded at manicpod Studios in Chembur, Mumbai. Our sound engineer is Mainak Chakraborty, and your producers are Arnav Dogra and Santosh Kumar. The Between Us podcast uploads episodes weekly, and we'll see you next time.